Hey guys, welcome back to the Leverage Advantage show. And today we've got a really special guest with us. It's my honor. I'm extremely humbled and grateful to have John Jonas with us. For those of you who don't know, John Jonas is the founder of OnlineJobs.ph. It's the world's largest website for finding Filipino virtual workers. Currently, his site has over 500,000 Filipino talent resumes and over 100,000 employers using this service. That's 500,000 Filipino talent resumes. John has helped thousands of entrepreneurs succeed in their business by doing outsourcing differently. He works about 17 hours a week, choosing instead to spend his time with his family rather than working. Thank you so much, John. Welcome on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I've used OnlineJobs.ph myself, and that's why I was so excited to have you on. Could you share a little bit with the audience your story, how you got into entrepreneurship and how you got into OnlineJobs.ph?
So my story of entrepreneurship is very different than online jobs. Growing up, I didn't recognize this at the time, but I had two kind of role models. And my dad, who worked hard, he worked really hard, and he had a job, and we were always poor. And my uncle was a lawyer, and he was rich. And so what I learned growing up was that having a job made you poor. And I get that's not correct, but that's what I learned. And so I wanted to be a lawyer. And until I was in college, and I had a pre-law class, and every lawyer who came in and spoke to us said, I don't hate my life, but everybody else I know does. and so that kind of changed my views. That same uncle one day told me, as I bragged about my grades and about how rich I was going to be because I had such good grades, and my brother wasn't getting great grades, and my uncle, that rich uncle, said, grades don't really matter. He said, usually it's the A students who work for the B students who manage the C students' companies. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to make someone else rich. And so that was always kind of like a driving force for me towards starting my own business. And I didn't want to work for someone else. So out of college, I had a job doing programming work for 10 months. It took me 10 months to quit and go work on my own. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Now, the outsourcing thing was an accident. That was just me hiring people in the Philippines to help my business just because I needed help, because there's not enough time in the day to get everything done. And so I started hiring people, and then people started asking, how are you doing this? What are you doing? How does this work? What's going on? And finally, I was like, dude, I can't just keep talking about this. I've got to record something and say like, hey, here you go. So I recorded an audio for an hour teaching it, and it just went crazy. And people wanted to know. So I found myself teaching it. And then we needed a better way to find the people. And so we started OnlineJobs.ph. There's my story.
That's really awesome, man. What were some of the biggest challenges you had though? Like for, I think, a lot of people that end up becoming entrepreneurs, that transition is always quite a big challenge. What were the biggest challenges for you?
In transitioning from having a job to being an entrepreneur, there wasn't anything. I'm a terrible employee. The incentive doesn't work for me. Where if I do good work, I get paid the same. If I do crappy work, I get paid the same. It just doesn't work for me, and my personality doesn't work. We didn't have any debt. We made sure we didn't have any debt. And so I was married with 2 kids when I quit my job. And so we had a little bit of savings, like enough to live for a month. But there was no other consequences really of quitting. And so that wasn't really an issue. I think the biggest challenge along this process for me was taking the leap to hire that first person to help me. Where, it's like, I can do this all on my own, and I'm pretty good at all these things that are going on. I don't necessarily like doing them. And so taking the leap to hire someone to do something was like a big deal, because I remember thinking, I don't know if I have enough work to keep someone busy. I don't know if they can do good work. I don't know if I don't know if I can afford it. And that was probably the first time was the biggest struggle for me.
That's really awesome. I think you touched on two really important points there. And it kind of mirrors my own entrepreneurship journey is this. One of the things I've learned recently, and maybe, is that for a lot of people, money is like a drug, or I would say credit or debt is a drug. And so because they need that, they get stuck in a job that they hate simply because they need to feed that addiction to credit or mortgage. They got to keep sending money that way. And for me, I started my entrepreneurship journey really young at like 17. And at that time, I didn't have any mortgages. Well, the truth is I was living with my parents. And I think one of the key things that I've realized as a pattern among successful entrepreneurs is that they have the reason why they're able to stay in the game long enough is because, one, they're able to live frugally in the beginning of their career. I think that's one big key. And the other is they're not addicted to credit or debt. So they don't have that huge pressure to make a ton of money or even a little bit of money so that they can feed that addiction. And I think the other point that you make is extremely integral for budding entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs getting into like growth stage, because I was just like you. My business was run between myself and my partner, and we could pretty much do everything on a pretty good level. There were some things we did excellent. There are some things we were genius level at, but there were some things I really didn't like doing, like accounting, for example. It's not my core competency. I know somebody else can definitely do it better than me. And taking that step to let go and to trust somebody else to do it for you is a huge transformation, because if you can't do that, your business will never grow beyond the entrepreneur. So I think you make those are really good points. And that's also what I love about your business, is that it provides entrepreneurs with the resources to, well, the alternative is you can hire somebody from where you live, and like somebody physical, but then you've got rent, and most of the time the salaries just don't match up with the value that you get. But with OnlineJobs.ph or with a virtual assistant, sure, I think one of the biggest challenges with that as well is finding the right one. But when you do, there's this huge sense of liberation. There's this huge sense of relief, right?
Can I talk about that?
Of course, please. I'd love for you to do that.
Oh man, you hit it perfectly. So the very first. So if I go back to the debt thing, I think you're like that's such a big deal, because it causes mental things with us, like mental pressure, where we won't allow ourselves to succeed in a business because we have all this debt. Okay, so whatever. That's a big deal. Okay, so the first time I hired someone, I mentioned earlier, I graduated from College of Computer Science. I was a programmer. And when I heard that I could hire someone in the Philippines, I went back and forth for a long time on whether or not I could do it. I spent like 2 months thinking about it. I ended up hiring a programmer to do the work that I was doing. And I didn't know, can he do good work, or can he, are they going to be as good as me? Or I just didn't know. So I ended up hiring this programmer. It was the most liberating experience of my life. All of a sudden, he was doing everything that I had been doing previously. He was better at it than I was. And I was free to work on my business instead of working in the business, because programming is so consuming, or whatever task it is you're doing is consuming, And all of a sudden, I had this dude who was 40 hours a week was his job to do my job. And I was free. And that feeling, that sense of liberation, the sense of like, oh my gosh, I can get this thing done and I don't have to do it. And the guy might be better than me at it.
Exactly.
Completely changed my life. Oh, and he was making $250 per month for full-time work.
Exactly.
So that's 12 years ago. Salaries aren't the same today, but it's like $1,000 a month for a really great programmer.
Yep. And that actually transformed my business. Now, my first employee I got from OnlineJobs.ph, and she's still with us today, and she's probably one of the best people that we have in the company, and she's amazing. Now, like I think I mentioned to you as well, my team is completely remote, and we hire from all over the world. We've got like a Serbian designer, we've got Egyptian and Palestinian video editors, and these guys do amazing work at a fraction of the cost that it would take for me to hire somebody in Singapore, right? And that, I think a lot of companies need to start thinking about how they can shift a lot of their functions to remote. And one of the things that you said is this: it allowed you to work on your business, and most likely the person that you're hiring is probably better than you at it. I mean, when I look at the amount of like how we value our time, I value my time very, very greatly, as do you. If you're working 17 hours a week so that you can spend time with your family, right? Like that time that you spend with your family is invaluable. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize about hiring remote workers is this. My Serbian designer, we pay him about 500 USD a month, and he's thrilled. He loves it. He pledges his loyalty to us, and of course we treat them well. We treat them very well, like over and above, we give them bonuses and incentives, and these are the things which I just hope that more people become enlightened to the way that these businesses can be run. Now, I mean, that's what's exciting to me about your industry, but what excites you most about your industry?
So I love hearing you say you treat them well. And that is exciting to me when I see, I just had an email from a customer like 10 minutes ago, right before we started, that she had some questions, and I was talking with her, and she sent me her job post, and I looked at it and was like, okay, you totally get it. Like, you're hiring this person, you recognize that they're a human, you recognize that you're helping them and that they're going to help you, and you're going to treat them well. And I can tell that this is what makes me excited, is her life's about to change, and the person she hires' life is about to change. And the person, her kids' lives may change. I don't know about that, like she's probably already reasonably well off, but the person she hires, their kids' life is going to change. Their parents' lives are going to change. It's going to affect generations. I've seen this thousands of times. It's going to affect generations in both directions because there's an opportunity for work, which wasn't there before because the Philippines is such a third world country. There's an opportunity for growth. There's long-term stability. It just changes all kinds of stuff. And that's what excites me. Is I know I'm just from looking at the job post and talking with this customer, she's going to succeed, and her business is going to grow because of it, and that's going to change her life. So that's what gets me excited, is seeing all these lives change through the process.
Awesome. And I love that you're such a mission-driven entrepreneur. I mean, let's talk about a little bit about remote hiring, right? I think one of the biggest challenges that people have with remote hiring is that they don't know if they're going to get the right person. And I mean, I'll share with you my own experience as well. I mean, we have some fantastic employees now, but that's also because it took a little bit of a learning curve on how you find the right person. How do we screen and select and recruit a person that's right for the organization? Do you have any tips on how somebody can actually do that? Because for us, we had to hire many people that just weren't a good fit before we found the right ones.
So I have tips. I just hired a designer 2 months ago, and I let him go a week ago because it just wasn't working. And he's a good designer, but personality-wise, it just didn't work. So just as I talk about this, I'm just saying that it's not perfect, right? So there's some things specific to the Philippines that I have seen, because I figured out years ago that if I hire full-time people, it's way better than if I hire hourly people. It completely changes my brain. It changes my ability to run my business. It changes it's really good. So all my people are in the Philippines or in the US. So I do all of my recruiting through email. Everything happens through email, and not like, here, I want you to do this, write this humongous long email back to me. I ask lots and lots and lots and lots of questions across multiple emails. So I'll recruit someone and talk with them for a week or 2 weeks before hiring them, as I ask them 10 or 20 questions and get responses from them. And so in doing that, I get to see their personality. I get to see, and in working remote, this is a big deal. I get to see how quickly they respond to things. I get to see how responsive they are, basically. Like, if it takes them 2 days to respond, then after you hire them, it's likely to take them 2 days to respond. And for me, as a remote worker, that doesn't work. Taking 2 days to respond or 3 days to respond means you're not working, right? Where the reality is they might be working, but in a local work environment, you see them, they come into your work, right? Remote, that doesn't work. So I need communication every single day. And recruiting this way allows me to see, are they going to communicate with me every day? And that's a pretty good indicator. I get to see their English. For a programmer, it doesn't really matter. For a designer, their English doesn't really matter. For a social media person, it's everything, And so in doing these emails back and forth, I get to see it. Someone could fake their profile on Online Jobs. Like, they can edit it really, really well. It's really hard to do that when you're sending so many communications back and forth. I get to see their attention to detail. And that one for me is a big deal for the way my brain works. So my brain, I want to give someone something to do, and I don't want to think about it ever again. At least once we're beyond the, like, here's the training, okay, I've seen your work and I've given you feedback, we've gone through this a little bit. I don't want to think about it again. And if during the recruiting I ask you 4 questions, you answer 3 of them, what does that tell me about your attention to detail? Right? So when I give you 4 tasks to do after I hire you, you're only going to do 3 of them. And that doesn't work for me, because I'm not detail oriented, and I need you to be, right. So those are some of the things that I do in recruiting that have really proven successful for me over the years. One thing I do not do, and this is going to go contrary to everyone's beliefs, but don't do a Skype interview. At least not with the Philippines. Filipinos don't want to talk to you on Skype. They don't want to be on video. They know that they'll understand you because they watch American TV, they watch American movies. They are really shy or embarrassed about you not understanding them. And sometimes when I've talked to them, which I've done very little, but sometimes, like, they're flawless, perfect English. And they're still scared that you won't understand them. So that's a concern of theirs, that if you decide to do a Skype interview, you're going to lose some good recruits who won't show up, even though they would have been a really great writer, and they're not going to be talking. Yeah, something I don't do.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for companies or for businesses that are looking to take their first steps into hiring a remote worker?
Yeah. So my first piece of advice would be to find something you are currently doing and hire someone to do that thing. There's 2 things that people do. They do what I just said, or the bigger thing that people want to do is like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me hire someone to do it for me. And that's fine. It's just harder, and it doesn't free up your time. And freeing up your time is more effective towards getting that other thing done that you don't know how to do than is getting that other thing done. So, and let me explain this. So the very first person I hired was a programmer. He took over programming for me. And so I moved on to writing stuff, which I hated. I hated writing, but I wasn't doing it before. It wasn't happening before. But once I knew what needed to happen for writing, I could then hire someone to do writing for me. And so I did. And so now, instead of just hiring someone to do writing and me continue to do programming, I had both of those things taken care of. And now I was free to focus on, like, sales. And I could think through the sales processes because you, the entrepreneur, know the business better than anybody. So if you can think through processes because you understand it, because you understand social media a little bit, then you can hire someone else to do the social media for you, teach them what you want done, and work through the process, but don't do it yourself. And so my biggest piece of advice is find someone to do something you are currently doing, free up your time, and then work on something else. And then hire someone to do that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And like you, I think it's also a little bit contrary to what a lot of people do. They hire for things that they're not doing so that they can focus on what they're still doing, but then their time is not freed up. And in fact, what happens is they actually spend more time because they have to train the other person. And most of the time, they end up having to learn it and then train that person. So they end up working triple time, double time, and yeah.
And it's I think it's one of the things that prevents people from starting, which is that huge training learning curve, because on the other end of it, you're not getting anything back other than more work done. You're not getting time back.
Yes.
And so for me, that getting time back is more valuable than anything else that gets done in the business. Because now with time, you can afford to learn something else. You can afford to teach something else. You can afford to give more training or more feedback. And so like now, I work 17 hours a week. I have 22 people in the Philippines that work for me full time. I manage almost all of them because it doesn't take that much time to manage them when I don't do any work myself other than just managing them.
That's awesome. I'll tell you a little bit of a story. Now, we've been hiring remote workers for a really long time, but only recently. And what you're saying really resonates with me because so I'm in charge of partnerships and in charge of BD. And I used to send outreach emails and set appointments for myself all the time. I did that for myself. And now that I've got my support team, my BD support team, my partnership outreach team, all I do is I turn up for the appointment and they do all that stuff which I used to do, and I feel so free. So I totally resonate with what you say, man.
Yeah, and it's not even that it's like, oh, this thing takes so long. It might be something like this thing takes 5 minutes. But you do that 5 minutes 4 times a day, and it's 20 minutes plus the task switching in between it. That's 30 minutes, right? You just got 30 minutes back in your life. Like that's a big deal. That's 30 minutes with your kids,
Absolutely, man. Tell me, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So I told you one already, my uncle warning me that A students work for B students who run C students' companies.
I love that one.
So in terms of business, the best thing someone ever said to me, this is 12 years ago. I was talking with the owner of backcountry.com, and they are the largest online retailer of outdoor gear. And he said, when you're ready to start outsourcing some of this stuff, make sure you go to the Philippines with it. And I was like, interesting. And he said, yeah, because in India, which everybody at the time was hiring in India. So he says, in India, when you tell them something and they say yes, that means, yes, I heard something come out of your mouth. It does not mean, yes, I understood what you said. And I was like, whoa, that's weird, But that, I didn't know this at the time, but that gave me a little bit of hope that there could be a different experience than what I had and than what everybody else was having in outsourcing, because outsourcing sucks, right? And that little bit of advice that he gave me some hope that I could find something different and completely change my life.
Awesome. Share with me, man. How do you unwind? How do you relax?
As soon as we're done, I'm going skiing. I spend a lot of time with my kids, and I spend a lot of time outside with my wife. We ride bikes together, we run trails together, we ski together, we backcountry ski, which is really what fills my soul right now. That's exercise. I find just like getting the blood flowing makes me so much better of a business owner. And yeah.
Awesome, man. Hey, man, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's been amazing. Time has flown by just simply because this conversation is amazing. I really hope we get. I'm sure we'll have more conversations sometime in the future. I loved connecting with you. Is there anything you want to share with the audience? Is there any kind of shameless plug you want to give?
I mean, the biggest thing is we've talked a lot about hiring remote workers, and that's cool and all. And I didn't even tell any stories behind like how good they are or whatever, but you can't know if this is what we say it is unless you hire someone. You have to try it. And it's different to hire someone at OnlineJobs.ph than it is at Upwork. It's a different experience. So you just have to try it and see if you can get 4 hours back out of your life. And that's my final thing. Like, try it, see what happens. Because maybe it won't work for you. Maybe it will.
And what if it does, right?
What if it does? The downside for trying it is so low, and the upside for the downside for it not working is like, okay, you lost a couple $100. The upside is you got 23 hours every week back in your life.
Yeah. You know what? Since you mentioned it, tell me just what's the most amazing story that you've heard come up from somebody hiring somebody from OnlineJobs.ph?
So I don't have a most amazing, because like I hear this regularly. There's a typhoon that came through the Philippines, right? This happens all the time.
Yep.
And someone emails me and says, "John, what do I do? My worker's house was completely flooded, and they sent me an email that says, 'Sir, we lost everything. Our house is gone. Our clothes are gone. We had to sit up on the roof while the flood came through until it all went away. We got out. We got rescued. But don't worry, sir. I saved my laptop, so I still have all of my work for you. All the work I've done for you, I still saved it.'"
That's amazing.
Like, dude, this is how it is. This is how they are. If you gain their trust, if you're like you said, if you treat them well, man, they'll do amazing things for you.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
I'm super available through email. I will not answer my phone for you. But if you use any contact us link at OnlineJobs.ph or Jonas blog or johnjonas.com, or if you use contact us and ask for me, it'll get to me. It won't come to me first, obviously, but everybody knows, send it on to me. Or I'm available through Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but if you message me or comment or whatever, I'm available at Facebook.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. I'm sure the audience is going to get so much from this conversation. Again, I'm extremely humbled, very honored, and very grateful that you decided to join us. Thank you so much, man, John.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been good.
Hey there, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, check out the relevant video here. And don't forget to subscribe to us for more marketing tips, techniques, strategies that are working for us, or just more behind the scenes fun. See ya.